Morning. How are you all this morning?
Let's talk about the compromise. It seems like we averted a budget mess, and people are now compromising in Washington and working once again.
Well, hopefully we'll get some things done here. And, I didn't particularly like the way that the compromise was made or even the result. And, in fact, a little of it is going to have to be immediately unwound. But it did sort of lock the most dangerous knives in the drawer here for the next year or so, where we do have an agreement on how much money is going to be spent. Now the challenge is to see if we can have an open debating process so that people see how their money is spent, what the priorities of the country are, and that those priorities come up with by the appropriators and the others are able to be challenged. And don't have time to do that this year, though all the bills for the first time in 6 years have been available to be debated on the floor since late May and early June. I'm hopeful one more time that next year we can get back to where, now that we've agreed on the biggest issue for next year, the spending number, that we can publicly talk about how that money's going to be spent.
You're up running commercials about the Military Family Stability Act. Talk about that for a moment.
Well, somebody's running those commercials. I'm not, but I was pleased to see them, and I thought they did a pretty good job of explaining what we're trying to do with the Military Family Stability Act, which just lets military families, for education reasons or professional reasons for the military spouse, to move a little earlier or stay a little longer. Part of the military is that you're constantly moved from one assignment to the next. And usually that has very little to do with what your family schedule may look like. There's really almost no reason and almost no cost to creating some flexibility in this system. So McGraw-Kelly, when Senator Gillibrand and I launched that bill and had a news conference on it a few weeks, maybe a couple of months ago now, one of the people that came was someone whose husband had been transferred from Hawaii to Fort Leonard Wood. They were supposed to move in June, so she got in the PhD program at St. Louis University. She got a teaching contract at Missouri Science and Technology at Rolla, both of which began in August, and then suddenly they don't move in June, and they don't move in July. He finally gets there, I believe, around early October, but she had to come on early to do the things she was doing, and all the family moving expenses that otherwise would have been paid by the government had to be paid by them because they weren't moving exactly when the service member needed to move. This is an easy problem to solve. If we really do think the strength of the military is in military families, this is a place where we could step up and do something for those military families that makes sense. If there's 1 month of school left or 1 month before school, you're going to move a month early so you can be there when school starts, or the spouse has a professional situation like the spouse I just mentioned.
Right.
These are problems we can solve if we want to.
Yeah. Roy Blunt, our guest senator from Missouri, for a couple of more minutes. As you sit and watch how your party nominates their presidential candidate, what are your thoughts?
Well, usually the best candidate that's available, maybe not the best candidate possible, but the best candidate available usually gets nominated. I think that's what will happen this time. I'm not nearly as afraid of this process as a lot of my friends and colleagues seem to be. I think the debate is good. I do think it's interesting, as I was listening right before I came on, that we're debating things like Marco Rubio's credit card use as a struggling young family guy, or who's going to host Saturday Night Live, as opposed to all the things that we really ought to be talking about. I would love to see a way to get the debate about the future of the country really on the future of the country. There are big differences in how we should move forward with out-of-control regulation, with a stronger sense of how we treat families and their utility bills and job opportunities, and not hearing much about that. Hearing about comic book characters running for president according to one of the CNBC questions, or just kind of blah, blah, blah. And I think people would like to see us talk about something that really mattered.
Senator, I actually agree with you, and I'll accept some of that criticism and blame for sort of covering the horse race and the polls as opposed to the policy. But as much as the media is at fault, the politicians sure do have a hard time explaining certain things. You know, when asked the hard questions, you have to admit they sort of block and pivot quite often.
Well, they do, but I think they have every reason to expect that some of the hard questions should be about the future of the country instead of some gotcha question with them. But you and I both understand that is politics. But this is a time, the foreign policy of the country is almost a total disaster. The health care plan is failing on all fronts. The economy's not nearly what it should be. We're not getting ready for the opportunities that are right out there in front of us. And I really don't care who hosts Saturday Night Live, is, I guess, my bottom line.
Sounds to me like you'd make a pretty good candidate for president, Senator.
Surely I am smart enough not to even consider that, but I'm glad to get into what I'm doing.
Let's make a little news here. If asked to be a vice presidential running mate, would you accept?
I'm confident that's not going to happen. That is sort of the ultimate hypothetical. So don't answer hypotheticals.
All right. Would you host Saturday Night Live if asked?
Probably not.
Oh, come on.
Well, maybe if I could take the two of you with me.
Okay.
All right. That's a deal.
Maybe the three of us might co-host.
There you go. Now
that'll be my first response. Well, only if McGraw and Kelly can do it with me.
Now that is a compromise America can get behind. Absolutely.
There you go.
Senator
See
Blunt,
you both soon.
Have a good day. Thanks, sir. Senator Roy Blunt here on the Big 550 KTRS. I agree with him to a certain extent that the coverage of the polls. Who cares what a poll says in November about an election in February, which is going to change dramatically. But every time we ask them a real question, they have 30 seconds, 60 seconds to explain how they're going to fix the tax code. If you give them 5 minutes, people's eyes glaze over. So the American public doesn't want the questions. They don't want the answers.
I think we do, but I think we're just so used to...
No, we say we do.
Yeah, well...
We say we do.
You know what? We're used to Donald Trump's...
That's right. So you ask somebody the question, okay, Obamacare's terrible. How would you fix it? And they talk for more than a minute and a half, and they lose 99% of the audience because their eyes gloss over. And they're like, what? I'm confused.
They get that politics speech.
Right. That's why they don't air those hearings on primetime television, because it's boring. Right? C-SPAN covers all that stuff. C-SPAN has all those things, and nobody watches C-SPAN.
Well, I'll tell you another reason why people
and
are
I don't want to get a text
over. Because there are 50 million debates.
Well, that's true. But I don't want people to text me, I watch C-SPAN. Okay, individually, you might watch C-SPAN. But collectively, as 350 million Americans, we don't. We watch Saturday Night Live as opposed to C-SPAN, which is why they go on C-SPAN, or why they go on Saturday Night Live and not C-SPAN. Window World Windows, ladies and gentlemen. If you need windows,